When I was 18, I picked up Erick, unwanted by anyone. He moved into my home. As time passed, feelings developed. I thought he liked me too. Then his Omega showed up. That's when I finally understood why he'd always been so distant with me. The day I left, I told him I was going out to buy him a birthday cake. 6 years later, he pinned me down by the back of my neck and asked, "Didn't you say you were getting me a birthday cake? Since you didn't bring one, then you can be the cake." 1. I sat in the chair. Sitting across from me was Erick, the man I hadn't seen in 6 years, and also the client I needed to win over today. He sat there stone-faced, carrying the intimidating presence of someone used to being in charge. Distant and cold. The moment our eyes met, something thudded in my chest. His gaze was as emotionless as ever. But to me, it felt like a deep undercurrent in a still lake, pulling me in without warning. I forced myself to stay calm and began explaining the cooperation proposal. But his burning stare never left me the entire time. By the time I finished presenting, Erick finally showed a flicker of expression. "I've changed my mind. Ruishing will not be signing this partnership, for now." Of course. He was still holding a grudge against me. And just like that, I blew the deal. What? We already agreed to everything before coming here. Why the sudden change, Erick? Corbin, who had been sitting beside me, stood up abruptly, clearly frustrated by Erick's sudden reversal. "If there are areas that still need improvement, does Dawson have any objections?" Erick stood up as he responded to Corbin, but his eyes never left me. "None. If there are any issues, feel free to make changes, Erick." I met his gaze squarely and spoke with complete professionalism. "Make sure you check your messages. Dawson." The way he practically ground out my name between clenched teeth made me feel like a student caught sneaking out by the principal. "Sure thing." I smiled back. Truth be told, I wasn't afraid of him. Not back then, and definitely not now. 2. After Erick left, I took a deep breath. Well, at least it didn't go completely off the rails. Behind me, Corbin walked up and threw a mock punch into the air, aimed at the elevator Erick had just taken. "Looks that good, and still pulled a last-minute switcheroo?" We had the whole thing nailed down. The nerve of that guy. I chuckled softly and said nothing. Totally bad egg. And you know what happens when you boil a bad egg? You get a soft-boiled mess, all runny and rotten. Am I right, Dawson? I watched the figure vanish completely from sight, then withdrew my gaze and replied calmly. "Yeah, not exactly a good egg." I didn't dare tell him that Erick probably pulled back from this deal because of me. Otherwise, the bad egg here would be me. With a sigh, I had no choice but to report back to our boss, Alden, leaving out the part about how Erick and I knew each other. "Let's go." Corbin sighed, gave my shoulder a pat, and started walking off. I followed behind him, already turning over in my head how I could convince Erick to reconsider. "What's up?" Noticing he'd suddenly stopped, I shifted my focus and looked in the direction he was staring. Just 10 meters ahead, Erick stood there, looking at the boy holding onto his arm with a soft gaze and the hint of a smile. I suddenly hated how sharp my vision was. Because I could never pretend not to see the tenderness Erick had never shown me. Brooks was clinging to Erick's arm, laughing cheerfully, acting all playful and sweet. And Erick, gently peeling his arms away, said something to him and motioned toward the car. They stood at the entrance, the breeze playing with their hair, intimacy hanging between them like an unspoken promise. Everyone who passed by would probably stop to admire the perfect picture they made. I was no different. I couldn't tear my eyes away. I just felt a slight chill, unsure when the wind from outside had slipped into my chest. After Brooks got into the car, Erick followed, without even noticing me. What the hell? Who's that kid? Why does a jerk like Erick get a sweet, soft little Omega like that? Do you think maybe Erick tricked him? I mean, he's so pretty, and yet he still fell for someone like him. I feel like I should save him, show him what a fake Erick really is. Don't you think, Dawson? I was still zoning out, staring at some random point. Ha! Luckily, Corbin was too thick-skinned to notice anything weird about me. He just kept on talking. Seriously though, that Omega just now. Way too good-looking. Right? Don't you think? I wonder what his name is. Brooks. This time I caught what he said and responded. Yeah. He's really good-looking. Wait, how do you know his name? He looked at me suspiciously, his eyes darting back and forth. Don't tell me, you like him too. So that's why you were staring at him like that. And Erick too. Oh man, I get it now. You guys are rivals in love. Oh, so you did notice. Big bro, your observation skills are decent, but your brain's a little slow. I don't like him. He was just a classmate from high school. Relax, we're not rivals. I patted his shoulder, my voice full of mock sympathy. Though, compared to Erick, you really don't stand a chance. Says who? I mean sure, I'm a little shorter, but I'm good-looking too, okay? Attracting Omegas? Easy. Alright then. I'll be rooting for you. 3. Back at the hotel, Aston called again. I thought it would be a scolding for messing up the job. But instead, I got a surprisingly understanding response. It's alright, Dawson. This project isn't urgent. Since you're back in the country, take some time to look around. Yeah, thank you. I knew Aston had always looked out for me. He was usually strict at work and never held back when criticizing employees, but I'd always been the exception. We met back in college. He once said we hit it off right away. And after learning I was from Jiangcheng, he became even more supportive. If it weren't for the fact that he's always had a girlfriend, I might have suspected he had other intentions. In his words, people from the same hometown should look after each other. After graduation, I joined his company directly. Luckily, I'd studied hard in college and after 2 years, I became one of his most trusted assistants, repaying a bit of the kindness he'd shown me. Lying flat on the bed, I closed my eyes and stared blankly at the ceiling. My phone rang. Unknown number. But I knew exactly who it was. I froze for a moment, and by the time I came to my senses, the call had already ended. I hadn't answered. Left with no choice, I called back. Hello, Erick. There was silence on the other end. My forced smile faded a little. Erick? After a pause, his voice finally came through. Dawson. Call me Erick. Okay, Erick. Forget it. Come pick me up. Then he gave me a location, and nothing more. It sounded noisy in the background. Seemed like he was in a crowd. I rubbed my temples and asked. Erick, I don't think that's something I should be doing. He was quiet for a moment. Then he replied with a subtle, threatening undertone. We'll discuss the business from earlier. Can you come get me? Sure. I fixed my tie and grabbed a ride. By the time I arrived at the place Erick mentioned, it had started to drizzle. The wind chilled me instantly. Shivering, I stomped my feet and went in. There were quite a few people in the private room. When I opened the door, the room suddenly went quiet. Erick was sitting there quietly. When he saw me, he waved lazily to the others. Alright, I'm out. Someone came to pick me up. Then he collapsed onto me. I had no choice but to wrap my arm around his waist and help him out. A few sighs and murmurs followed us out the door. Outside, the rain kept falling. Wind blew, the raindrops slanted and thin, veiling the city in mist. I glanced at the barely conscious Erick, patted his cheek, and asked. Where's your car? I'll take you home. His head rubbed against my shoulder a couple of times, lips brushing my neck as he mumbled, but he didn't say anything clearly. I had to steady him with one arm while fishing through his pocket with the other. My arm wasn't long enough, and I lost my balance, nearly ending up on my knees in front of him. Only then did he suddenly stand upright, grab a handful of my hair, and squint blearily at me. Dawson, what are you doing? I rolled my eyes, ready to just leave him there. But then I remembered, he was the client this time. I took a deep breath, talked myself into staying calm, snatched my hair out of his hand, reached into his pocket, and pulled out his car key, all in one motion. While I was at it, I gave him a little pinch. Seriously, what goes on in this guy's head? He was only clear-headed for a second. In the end, I still didn't know where he lived. So I had no choice but to take him back to the hotel with me. 4. By the time I dragged Erick back to the hotel, it was already 10 p.m. I wanted to get him his own room, but I couldn't find his ID anywhere, even after patting him down completely. And I definitely couldn't share with Corbin. That big mouth would have the whole city gossiping about Erick and me by morning. Better not start trouble. Let things end peacefully. Dawson. Dawson. What now, Your Highness? I walked over, gritting my teeth, thinking he was going to act up again, only to see that he had already sat up, head lowered, deep in thought. He seemed to notice my footsteps and suddenly looked up. In his half-lidded eyes, something was swirling. His face was flushed, and his breathing was heavy. My heart sank. Oh no, he must be entering his heat. I stopped in my tracks and began backing away. But before I could bolt, he stood up in a flash and yanked me into his arms. Erick! Erick! My voice trembled as I called his name over and over, hoping he still had some reason left. He gave a low hum in response. His arms tightened around me as his lips brushed along the back of my neck, clearly searching for my dormant gland. A wave of heat radiated from behind me, so hot I shivered. I was terrified he'd bite down by accident, so I quickly twisted in his arms until I was facing him. Now separated from that patch of skin, Erick's expression instantly soured. His brows knit, clearly displeased. Erick, let go. I'll go get you some suppressants. I struggled twice, but he didn't budge. I had no choice but to reason with him. No. He let out a low whimper, then buried his face in my shoulder again, still searching. Seriously, what's wrong with him? I don't even have pheromones, so why does he enjoy sniffing me like a dog? Still, at least my arms were free now. I pulled out my phone and called the front desk. Hi, could you please send up a box of heat suppressants, ah. Before I could finish the sentence, a sharp sting hit the back of my neck. That dog actually bit me. 5. I hung up the call in a rush, grabbed his head, and slapped him lightly on the cheek. Who told you to bite me? He licked his sharp canine teeth and leaned in again like he hadn't had enough. Back off. I rubbed my sore gland, grabbed his tie, and glared at him. Erick, look at me carefully. I'm Dawson, not Brooks. He blinked. His eyes seemed to regain some clarity. He didn't seem to understand what this had to do with Brooks, and mumbled back. I know. You're Dawson. Then why the hell did you? Sir, your suppressants. Just leave them at the door, I called out, letting him go and getting up to grab the box. All right. When I closed the door and turned around, I nearly jumped. Erick was right behind me, quiet as a shadow, like a damn puppy. Go sit down. I'll give you the injection. I pointed to the chair. He didn't move. Fine. I brought the kit to the entryway, prepared the injection, and faced him. Take your shirt off. Now that got a reaction. In a flash, he shrugged off his jacket and started unbuttoning his shirt. Hey, stop. That's enough. I grabbed his wrist mid-button, pulled up his sleeve instead. His arm was toned and muscular. I couldn't help but swallow subconsciously as I got ready to inject. But then, his hand clamped around my throat. I looked up. Erick was already leaning in, lips crashing into mine. I froze, completely caught off guard. By the time I reacted, he'd already pried my lips open, taking the kiss deeper. Then I remembered, he still hadn't taken the suppressant. I used all my strength to shove him away, but he didn't budge. Finally, with the last ounce of strength I had, I plunged the syringe into his arm and pushed in the medicine. When he finally let go of me, I was panting hard. Erick collapsed to the floor, unconscious. I stared at him, breathless, and seriously considered kicking him a few times. Damn it. My first kiss. It's ridiculous, really. I've known Erick for 7 years. And this was our first kiss. Of all times, it had to be during his heat. While he wasn't even in his right mind. I licked my numb lower lip, equal parts angry and helpless. Whatever. Hopefully, when he wakes up, he won't remember a thing. 6. The next morning, Erick was already dressed and sitting on the sofa, staring at me. His gaze made me uneasy, but I forced myself to explain. You insisted I pick you up yesterday. I didn't know where you lived, so I just brought you here. He frowned, looking a bit confused. Yesterday. You didn't do anything yesterday. I cut him off before he could remember too much. All right. He stood up, gave a low hum from his throat and turned to leave. I quickly got out of bed, opened the door for him, and smiled politely. Take care, Erick. He glanced at me with a displeased expression and walked out. Just as I was about to close the door, Corbin from the opposite room opened his door. He looked from me to Erick's departing back, utterly shocked, mouth forming an O. Why you, he. He took a big step into my room, pointing at Erick's back, struggling to speak properly. Business deal, I blurted out, trying to deflect so he wouldn't catch on. Still, I had overestimated his intelligence. He scratched his head and said, Oh, he must be crazy, coming to a hotel this early for a meeting? I didn't deny it and followed his lead with some joking. Yeah, I think so too. Don't take it seriously. Erick's got issues. He sat down on my bed like it was his own room, then sniffed hard and asked suspiciously. Dawson, what's that smell in your room? I nearly jabbed my toothbrush down my throat, then answered groggily. Smell? I don't think so. We hadn't done anything yesterday, after all. A bit spicy, like pepper. Did you cook in there? My heart skipped. I spat out the last bit of foam in my mouth and sniffed again, nothing. So there was only one possibility, it was Erick's pheromone smell. Then my morning denial to him, that nothing happened, felt like an open confession. Is it strong? Not really, but I don't like the smell of pepper. I froze, remembering that 7 years ago when I accidentally added pepper to his porridge, I told him not to drink it. He'd asked why, and I said pepper made it taste bad. He paused eating, then carefully asked, You don't like pepper? What did I say back then? I said I hate pepper. 7. So the pepper smell was actually Erick's pheromone scent. Thinking back, I realized I never really knew what Erick's pheromones smelled like. 6 years ago, I'd asked him, but he always refused to tell me. I thought it was because he looked down on me as a beta who couldn't smell pheromones. Turns out, it might be because his pheromones actually smelled like pepper. I shook my head, dismissing the idea. He didn't care about me, so how could he possibly care whether I liked the smell of his pheromones? Dawson? I turned my head, pulling myself out of my thoughts. I'm going to hang out with that pretty Omega I ran into yesterday. Wish me luck. Brooks? Yeah. Corbin smiled slyly, he's adorable. I've done my research, he likes cool, aloof types. Lucky for him, I'm charming, handsome, and sophisticated. I chuckled awkwardly, unsure how to tell him that the aloof type Brooks liked was actually Erick. Good luck. After Corbin left, I suddenly felt like visiting my little old place. After all, that was my home. And Erick and I lived there together for a year once. Without hesitation, I got dressed and took the subway and bus for an hour and a half to that familiar spot. It hadn't changed at all. A little house nestled among block buildings, with peeling walls and sunlight pouring in. The only difference was fewer people around. Even the breakfast shop that used to be open all the time had closed. I sighed, hungry, and went upstairs. Fumbling beneath the rug, I found the key and unlocked the door. When I stepped inside, there was no dusty smell like I'd expected. Instead, there was a dull hum from an old fan. No wonder they say smell is the first thing to awaken memory. That familiar scent of the house brought me back to summer days, sitting with Erick on a bamboo mat, eating watermelon. Too bad the smell and the house were still here, but the people were gone. Erick probably wouldn't want to come back here anymore. I walked slowly through the house. It looked exactly as it did 6 years ago, but something felt off. After 6 years, how was there no dust at all? It looked like someone had been living there. A terrifying thought flashed through my mind, and I didn't dare stay longer. I locked the door hurriedly and ran downstairs. Outside, in the sunlight, my shaking heart hadn't calmed when I ran into Alden sitting by the door. I greeted him. "Alden, why isn't the shop open today?" He pushed his glasses up and looked at me carefully. "Oh, Dawson. You're back. It's been closed for ages. No one lives here anymore. Why would anyone run a breakfast shop? Everyone's gone, all gone." I was shocked. Looking around, there really wasn't anyone. This used to be a famous old neighborhood, always busy with people. They all moved out, to better places. "You remember Erick? He's a big boss now. He's the one who kept this place from being torn down, so we can still come back and visit." Alden fanned himself and told me about how things had changed in the last few years. "Why did you leave without a word? It's been a while since we saw you. Once I ran into Erick, and he said he had no idea where you went." Of course he didn't. I left without telling him. I remembered the day I left. I saw Brooks coming to find him again and said, "I'm going to buy a cake." Erick nodded at the cheerful Brooks and told me to come back quickly. I said nothing, turned, and walked away. 6 years gone. And now, coming back, this was what I found. 8. "Erick, you're here again." Following Alden's words, I turned to see Erick just stepping out of his car in casual clothes. The sunlight fell on him, making me see the wild, reckless Erick of 6 years ago. Back then, Erick refused to wear a school uniform but was full of youthful energy. Now, he was steadier, his features sharper, just like the mature image I'd imagined of him in high school. "Erick, Dawson's back. Finally, you get to see him," Alden grabbed my hand and happily told him. Erick nodded slightly and gave a faint smile. "Yeah, I've seen him." "Well, I won't bother you two catching up then." Alden turned and went inside, leaving Erick and me alone. I opened my mouth but wasn't sure how to start. What did Alden mean by saying he finally got to see me? Had Erick waited for me all these years? Was he the one who'd been keeping the house clean and living here? "Won't you invite me in?" "Nah, the house is shabby. You probably wouldn't feel comfortable." Erick clicked his tongue. "I lived here for a year, remember, Dawson?" "I remember." I looked up at the worn-down house, then back at him. "Erick. You forgot, didn't you? We parted on a sour note." I knew that time with Erick wasn't important to him, maybe even a stain. And his indifferent attitude toward me hid some old resentment. Well, the past should stay in the past. Dust eventually settles. 9. As Alden said, Erick is a big boss now, there's no need for him to stoop to living in that little house. 6 years have passed. We're no longer 18. 6 years ago, Brooks was by his side. And 6 years later, still there. I remember when Erick's mother found me, like something out of a cliché drama, she wanted me to go abroad, to stay away from her son. She even offered to pay my entire tuition. I agreed. I couldn't refuse such a good deal. Orphaned and without family, I was lucky just to be able to study this far. There was no reason not to accept. As for Erick, he's just like his name, cold and distant. I could never warm his heart, so I gave up. When I first found him, he was squatting by the roadside like a stray dog, bruised and looking like a delinquent. I didn't want to get involved, but when I walked past, he grabbed my wrist, begging me to buy him something to eat. I had no choice but to take him home. Later, we lived together in that little house for almost a year. Back then, I didn't know he was a young master. I thought he was a poor kid like me. He always slept on the sofa. Once, during his sensitive period, he curled up there, sweating with a strange flush on his face. I thought he just had a fever and went to buy medicine. He grabbed my hand to stop me and suddenly flipped over me. That's when I realized his sensitive period had come. After giving him a suppressant injection, he stayed by the sofa all night, holding my hand tightly as if afraid I'd leave. How did we end up together? It's all blurry, I never really knew. Looking back, it was just wishful thinking on my part. Later, Brooks appeared by his side. That's when I realized he wasn't some poor boy at all, he was a young master. And Brooks was his arranged Omega match. The day I left was Erick's coming-of-age ceremony. Brooks came to find him, smiling and grabbing his arm to take him home. I watched with envy and suddenly remembered my own 18th birthday. How did I spend it? It was right when Erick was in his sensitive period. I stayed up all night taking care of him. From that day on, I liked Erick. But on Erick's 18th birthday, I abandoned him. I turned away to wipe my tears and told him, "I'm going to buy you a cake." 10. I did buy a cake, just for myself. That day, I cried while eating the whole cake in the shop. It was so sweet it tasted bitter. Since then, I haven't eaten cake again. Erick took me back to the hotel. No one said a word on the way. When I opened the car door and stepped out, I heard his voice behind me. "Dawson, I can't forget, and I won't." I paused, gave him a bitter smile without turning around, and stepped out with my other foot. "You better not forget either." With a slam, the car door closed. I was outside, he was inside. We were from different worlds, what good would remembering do? Back at the hotel, Corbin was excitedly chattering behind me. "I'm telling you, that Omega I met today is just too cute. Looks so cold but actually shy as hell. I think I'm already in love with him. What should I do, Dawson? If I propose tomorrow, will he say no?" "Propose?" I rubbed my forehead and sighed, deciding to tell him the truth. "He will." "Will what?" "You mean he'll fall in love with me?" "No, I mean he'll say no." "You do know he's a young master, right? Do you know who his arranged match is?" "Arranged match?" He scratched his head, confused. "It's Erick." "No way. What a small world." He looked shocked and angrily pounded the table. How could Erick be good enough for him? Besides, he doesn't even like that improved guy. I twitched the corner of my mouth and looked at him helplessly. "Who told you that?" "Brooks." I asked if he liked Erick. He said, "What's it to me? Isn't that a no?" Once again, his logic stunned me into silence. He kept talking non-stop. I asked if he liked me. He didn't say anything. Doesn't that mean he's shy? Doesn't that mean he's in love with me? I clapped my hands, genuinely impressed by his explanation. "Well done," I gave him a thumbs up. "Good luck." 11. The plan had to continue. I still had to be at Erick's beck and call. He called me to the office, saying we'd talk about cooperation when he finished work. I waited in the office all afternoon. When he was done, he left. Even when he went to other meetings, he wanted me to come along. If I didn't, he'd just end it and ask me to pick him up. Eventually, I got so annoyed I slapped him. I thought he'd get angry, but he just rubbed his cheek, sighed, smiled foolishly, and left. After his relentless teasing for half a month, he finally calmed down. Because today was his 24th birthday, he needed to go home. Corbin saw I was finally free and dragged me out for drinks. After a few rounds, he slurred his words and complained. Why won't Brooks get close to me? What's so good about Erick anyway?" I swirled the wine in my glass and casually asked. Why do you guys like Omegas so much? Are Omegas really that great? He grabbed the bottle and chugged, choking out. Of course. You don't know how cute Omegas are. So fragrant and soft, who wouldn't like that? I thought of Brooks acting all spoiled with Erick and took a gulp myself. Yeah, they were pretty cute. Erick must be arm in arm with Brooks at his birthday party now. Maybe the next news would be their engagement. The more I thought about it, the more bitter I felt. Corbin had already passed out next to me like a corpse. At that moment, an Omega waiter knocked and walked over, smiling sweetly. Big brother, this is our new wine. Want to try some? He blinked his bright eyes, curved his lips into a beautiful crescent, and gently sat on my lap. I was a little overwhelmed and nervously took a sip of the wine. The Omega seemed pleased by my reaction and wrapped his arm around my collarbone. I suddenly remembered what Corbin said earlier. I didn't push the Omega away and let him mess around, even though I didn't feel comfortable. I wanted to see if Omegas were really that great. Fearing he might fidget, I hugged his slender waist. I didn't dare touch much, but I had to admit, he really was soft and fragrant. Big brother, he called sweetly and planted a kiss on my cheek. Blood rushed to my face. I almost pushed him away. Just then, Erick walked in. 12. He came in with a dark expression and roughly pulled the Omega off me, Brooks following right behind. The Omega took the hint and left quietly. Corbin, hearing the noise, groggily got up. Dawson, what are you doing? His voice was loud, full of anger and frustration, fists clenched as he confronted me. His question fired me up. I shook off his hand and snapped, none of your business. He flashed a look of shock, laughed bitterly twice, and grabbed me again. Corbin didn't care about me at all. Seeing Brooks, he immediately threw himself onto him, whining, "You really came, Brooks baby. I thought you wouldn't pick me up, boo-hoo. So it was you who sold out the address. No wonder Erick found this place." Brooks pushed Corbin's head away and exchanged a glance with Erick. Ignoring my struggle, Erick dragged me out of the bar, shoved me into the car, and locked the doors. What are you doing, Erick? Let me out. He didn't give me a chance to yell at him. Once inside, he grabbed the back of my neck with one hand and kissed me aggressively. I struggled, hitting him hard, but he pinned my hands above my head. With his other hand, he grabbed my chin, refusing any resistance. Unable to fight back, I bit his lower lip hard during his biting kiss. The metallic taste of blood filled my mouth before he finally let go. Erick, are you crazy? Let me out. He wiped the blood from his mouth with his thumb, eyes dark with anger, voice low and fierce. Don't even think about it. You want to go out and get close with other Omegas, huh? He started the car and left that irritating place behind. I laughed bitterly, mocking him. You're only allowed to marry Brooks, but I can't get close to other Omegas? He frowned deeply, clearly annoyed, asking. Who told you about marrying Brooks? Mom? I said nothing, an unspoken yes. Good job, Dawson. You don't even ask me who I'm marrying, you just listen to her. He slammed the steering wheel, grinding his teeth, whether from anger at me or the red light, I didn't know. 6 years ago, you said you were going to buy me a cake, but you ended up losing yourself. I turned my head, unwilling to look at him. No matter what, 6 years ago I did accept his mother's bribe. The car finally stopped. He got out, took something from the trunk, and opened the passenger door. When I stepped out, I saw he was holding a cake. We had arrived at my little house. 13. Night had fallen, the moon was bright and stars sparse. He stood under the moonlight, ghostly, and said, Don't you owe me a cake? I bought it now, but I've changed my mind. What? I shivered, a bit scared by his expression. Then you'll be the cake. Without waiting for a reply, he pulled me upstairs. Afraid something would happen, I didn't struggle hard on the stairs. The cake wobbled and tilted as I pushed and shoved. Eventually, it was placed crookedly on the table. Before the lights came on, he pinned me by the door. His impatient kiss overwhelmed me, his lips silencing mine. The darkness gave me no sense of security, only his heated body and burning breath. Let me go. All my words were swallowed by that kiss. But beta strength was no match for alpha. I went limp and collapsed into his arms. The air grew thinner, breathing was harder. At last, I caught a faint whiff of pepper. When I finally got fresh air, tears fell, not just from my body but from a deep heartache. Seeing me cry, he nervously wiped my tears and softened his voice. Dawson, I'm no longer arranged to Brooks. He held me, voice hoarse as he explained. It's got something to do with me. He corrected himself, not that I made you cancel it. He kissed my forehead, voice trembling. Yeah, I did it willingly. 14. He locked the door, acting as if this were his home. I lay by the window and looked down. The third floor, neither high nor low. I shook my head, ruling out jumping from here. Who's washing first, you or me? I turned and saw Erick coming out of the only room, holding a set of pajamas. Looking closely, weren't those my old pajamas? How did he find them? 6 years without wearing them, would they even fit? Maybe my disgust was written all over my face. He came over, put the pajamas in my arms, and sighed, they're clean. I didn't believe him. I sniffed them, but there was no musty smell, only a sharp pepper scent that stung my nose. I wrinkled my nose and sniffed again uncertainly. Erick snatched the pajamas back, impatiently asking, "Are you coming to wash or not?" I looked up, about to ask what he was thinking. Then I saw his furrowed brows and ears flushed red. He bent down to look me in the eye, a smirk on his lips, teasing. "Or do you want to wash with me?" Suddenly, the blush shifted to my face. I glared at him, snatched the pajamas, muttering, "Crazy. Don't you know how tiny the bathroom is?" "What?" I stopped talking, gave him a fake smile, and challenged. "Fine, do you want me to scrub your back?" The smile vanished instantly from his face. His ears burned red down to his cheeks. He straightened up, sounding unusually flustered. No need." Then he turned and almost stumbled walking toward the room. I chuckled and flipped him the middle finger, cursing loud enough this time. "Idiot. All talk, no action, a little rookie." 15. After the shower, I felt refreshed. The shower head inside had been replaced at some point. Finally, it no longer dripped like a light rain, but flowed steadily. There were even some of my usual toiletries. Now I was sure Erick really was going to live here again, and not just for a little while. Crazy. He has a villa but chooses to stay in this tiny rundown place, one with almost no neighbors around. After washing, I was stunned to see the room tidy. He'd actually cleaned it up himself. Even in the past, I never saw him do that. You rest, I'm going to shower," he said, standing up without looking at me. He left the room without a single unnecessary word, kindly closing the door behind him. I lay on the bed, breathing in the fresh scent of the sheets, but my mood was restless. Tossing and turning, I waited for the sound of water to stop. When Erick didn't come back, I wondered, was he planning to sleep on the couch? That couch was tiny, and Erick was almost 1.9 meters tall. How could he squeeze there? The bed was small too, but at least 1.5 meters wide. 2 people could manage. Was he out of his mind? Thinking this made me thirsty, so I got up to get some water. I quietly opened the door and saw Erick sitting on the couch. The dim light cast a soft glow on him, making him look a little lonely. Maybe the light was too gentle, or the cicadas outside too noisy. Before I knew it, I was already behind him. He heard the sound, turned, and looked at me in surprise. There was still some white cream on the corner of his mouth. "What's up?" He swallowed the cake in his mouth and asked curiously. Noticing my gaze, he glanced at the ugly, crooked cake and then held it out. "Want to try?" Despite its shape, I recognized what it originally was. It was exactly the same cake I ate 6 years ago when I left. Could so many coincidences really happen? I shook my head, dismissing the thought. I don't want any. Seeing me shake my head and look at the sad cake, a lonely shadow flickered in his eyes. No, it's not that. I stepped closer, wiped some cream with my finger, and tapped his nose. Dawson. Shoo, I put my cream-covered finger on his lips, smearing a little more on him. Erick, close your eyes. It was just an ordinary sentence, but he obeyed like he was under a spell, closing his eyes to await my move. I leaned forward, pressed my lips to the corner of the sofa cushion, and smeared cream onto his lips. The sweet, sticky cream melted in my mouth. After just a few seconds, I stood up to leave. I noticed Erick staring straight at me. In his eyes, I saw a reflection of myself, a look of desire with nothing hidden. I didn't avoid it. We shared this moment, his Adam's apple moving as he swallowed. Softly, I said, "Happy 18th birthday, Erick." "I'm already 24, he corrected me with parted lips, slightly stunned. "I know," I smiled with eyes shining, tilting my head. "Consider this an 18th birthday gift." With that, I turned and went back to my room. I thought there was no need for him to sleep in his room tonight. Because tonight, he definitely wouldn't sleep at all. I wasn't sure if the Erick from 6 years ago liked me. But I knew for sure the Erick now loved me. Whether it was obsession or affection, I just wanted to follow my heart. At least this time, I shouldn't be the only one hurting. That bitter cake from 6 years ago finally tasted sweet today. 16. The next morning, as expected, I saw dark circles under Erick's eyes, and he looked a little tired. This time, I naturally sat in the passenger seat. "Where to?" "The hotel." I buckled my seatbelt. He suddenly cleared his throat and asked quietly, "Hotel?" Just one look told me he misunderstood. I laughed helplessly, "The hotel I'm staying at to get the contract." Oh, okay." He panicked a little and slammed the accelerator, almost launching the car forward. Thank goodness there were no traffic cops around. When we got to the hotel, I rushed into Corbin's room. To my surprise, he wasn't there. I had no choice but to call him to hurry to fruition. In the messy, muttering background, I thought I heard Brooke's voice. Not wanting to think too much, I went ahead myself. But Erick hadn't left yet. The glaring Bentley was still parked downstairs. "Why haven't you left?" I asked as I opened the car door and got in. "Waiting for you." He glanced at the contract in my hand, frowned, and asked, "Did I say to sign it?" "Ha!" I turned to look at him, gritting my teeth. "What exactly don't you like, Erick?" Sign. He swallowed nervously and started the car. I like it a lot." 17. At the company, Corbin finally showed up, followed by Brooks. When did they get so close? After the contract was signed, Corbin was so happy he almost jumped up. Though I was the main force behind it, Corbin was the biggest beneficiary. He was Aston's younger brother. But raised mostly abroad by his mother, few knew about him. Corbin wasn't interested in business. The old man ordered that if this deal went through, Corbin could pursue whatever he wanted. So now, holding Brooks' hand, he spun around in the conference room, drawing everyone's attention. Ahem, Brooks coughed twice, eyes closed, clearly too shy to look. "Well, you two go ahead and talk, haha." Corbin put Brooks down and left, still not forgetting work before leaving. "Dawson, the rest is up to you." I rubbed my forehead, no longer having the energy to lift my head. Money's hard to earn, crap's hard to swallow, being a worker isn't really a life. 18. When I returned to report back, Erick took me to the airport. I thought he would be reluctant to see me go, but he just hugged me briefly and said, "Wait for me to come back." I didn't really understand then and didn't take his words to heart. I completed the report perfectly. Aston patted my shoulder and said he wanted to promote me. He wanted me to return to China and parachute in as the director of a subsidiary. The location? Jiangcheng. Was this a coincidence? Just after coming back, I had to leave again. On the day I left again, I ran into Brooks. Brooks smiled lightly at Corbin, his beautiful eyes curving. Corbin, I left my bracelet in the car. Can you help me get it? Sure. After Corbin left, Brooks immediately stopped smiling. I took a sip of coffee and asked him directly, what's going on? Just tell me. He's way smarter than that idiot Corbin. He glanced outside at Corbin. Somehow, I saw happiness in his eyes, a look different from when he was with Erick. My marriage alliance with Erick was ended a long time ago. Yeah, he told me. Brooks nodded as if he already knew and then asked, do you know when it was ended? I shook my head, honestly not knowing. 2 years ago. When you left, he wasn't doing well. He kept trying to find out where you went and why you left without a word. Later he found out his mom forced you away and had a big fight with her, but she refused to say where you were. So after resisting for a year, he gave in, came back home, and agreed to remarry me, letting them control him. I was stunned. Then You want to ask why he ended the marriage with me now? He spent 4 years working non-stop through college, and 2 more years to get where he is now, no longer controlled by others. That's why you came back. What do you mean? Do you think Erick and aStray don't know each other? You're a bit naive, Dawson. They're in the same circle, partners even. Otherwise, why would aStray, a rich heir, care about you so much? I didn't know. There's a lot you don't know. Like in high school, Erick let me cling to him because if he didn't get close to me, you'd be doomed. It was too easy for them to target you. I was confused and sensed Brooks didn't like Erick. Why was he acting friendly toward him? And you now? I asked. Don't worry, I won't pester Erick anymore. He's so arrogant and cold, nothing to like. I was completely stunned, staring at Brooks in front of me, feeling like I didn't know him at all. He usually looked innocent and polite to everyone. Don't look at me like that. An Omega has to find a good path to survive in this world, he waved his hand, amused by my reaction. To be honest, if Erick hadn't chased you so long and failed, I wouldn't have told you this. Seeing you two so in love yet so full of misunderstandings, it's actually pretty entertaining. The door creaked open. Brooks' playful smile instantly softened as Corbin handed over the bracelet. Brooks gently raised his slender wrist to meet Corbin's eyes and quietly said, thanks. I watched Corbin's ears turn red and shook my head. This guy was definitely being played by Brooks. 19. I didn't tell Erick I was back, but no need, the same night I saw him at the little house. Dawson, why are you back? I walked over, listening to cicadas outside, quietly playing along. This is my home. Why can't I come back? No, that's not what I meant. Erick, why do you come back to live here so often? Is it because of me? Yeah. Just one word, no more. After all these years, I thought he had changed. Turns out he's still as stubborn as ever. I leaned closer until we were 20 centimeters apart, then took the initiative. I like you, Erick. I saw his pupils shrink sharply. Ignoring his reaction, I stood on my tiptoes and kissed him. He was stubborn, but soft when kissed. He was stunned for a moment, then turned the tables, grabbing the back of my head and deepening the kiss. Slowly, his lips moved to my ear, then the back of my neck, gently nibbling and licking that soft skin, sending shivers down my spine. I grabbed his hair and snarled, Erick, are you a dog? No, he ground his sharp teeth, almost biting down. He wrapped his arms around my waist, voice hoarse, Dawson, I want to mark you. I chuckled, I'm a beta, you can't mark me. It's okay, then I'll mark you every time. Erick, are you even human? Not getting a refusal, he bit down hard, painful but thrilling. After a while, he buried his face in my neck and said, No, I'm Dawson's little dog. His answer pleased me. I sniffed the faint peppery scent in the air and rubbed his head. Pepper-scented little dog. His breath hitched. Hesitant, he asked. Did you smell it? Yeah. I looked at his shining eyes, which quickly dimmed with disappointment. You don't like the pepper smell. I don't, but I like you. He nuzzled me, silent, but I clearly felt my collarbone get damp. 20. The next day, that little bed was officially retired. A large bed replaced it, nearly taking up the whole room. I laughed and asked, Erick, are you going to keep living here? Sometimes I come back. I squeezed his fingertips. Are you stupid? You have a big villa but choose to squeeze into this tiny broken house. This isn't a broken house. He held my hand back. This is our home. When you're not here, only here can I fall asleep, so I can fool myself into thinking you're still in the room. Get a bigger sofa too. I intertwined our fingers. Why? Do I still need to sleep on the sofa? Did I bite too hard yesterday? I'll be careful next time. No, I whispered in his ear on tiptoe. His ears instantly turned red. We walked hand in hand out of the room, looking at the familiar space. Time seemed to rewind, overlapping with 6 years ago. It felt good. Luckily, everything was still just as it was.